Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Idea Chats. Today, I have with me Annalisa, and this month, what we are discussing is LGBTQIA Day, STEM Day, as well as Trans Awareness Week. These are two massive topics that are not really discussed within our field, and so I think this is going to be one of the most important interviews I've done for quite a while. So, Annalisa, thank you for joining me today. So, I guess what my first question is, what's your name? What are your pronouns? What's your job title? And what research area are you in?
Of course. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. Also, no pressure on one of the more important. Um, hi, my name is Annalisa. My pronouns are they, them, and occasionally she. My job title, I guess, is that I'm a full-time PhD student or researcher in the School of Science at RMIT. And I guess the best description that I could give of what I even do with my research is I use computational modeling, so computer simulations, to look at how we can improve the performance of batteries to, make uh, aeroplanes fly and all that fun stuff using rechargeable sort of
Okay,
devices. So
cool.
yeah,
Oh, that's
oh,
amazing.
yes,
Um,
yes.
I would also just like to apologize to start with. I did not do my acknowledgement of country. Um, so I would like to acknowledge the country of the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nations in which I am on today. And I would like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So apologies for that. Okay, so that sounds really amazing. So battery wise, what is like, has it changed much since batteries were invented?
Very good question on that one. Also, I should acknowledge as well that as I'm not from Melbourne, quickly, an acknowledgement of the land in which I'm on as well, of the Yorta Yorta Nation up in the Shepparton region. So, because I'm not near there. But no, as for battery research, yes and no. So the most commercially used batteries, which we find in our phones and in our laptops, are lithium-ion batteries, and they've been like the state of the art, most used for several decades now. But so they're pretty much what nothing's really changed in that aspect of what's being used. But as sort of technologies continue to develop and we get longer and longer iPhones and all that fun stuff, and we want to be able to power our cars using renewable energy and be able to sort of store enough so that they can go more than just a couple hundred k's, we start to run into more problems when it comes to how much energy we can actually store in them, and that's sort of where we are now. So we've got lithium ion, those are the batteries of the past. We're looking at ones of the future. So it hasn't changed too much. There's just been a lot of research on how we can do that.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, I guess that leads quite like nicely into my first question, which is what has been a recent highlight within your research slash career?
But good question. I would definitely say one of the most recent ones was last year I got to participate in the 3 minute thesis competitions that kind of run throughout the universities, and I managed to come out as the School of Science winner. So that was kind of fun. It yeah, very much validated my experience ability to just talk for 2 minutes about something, and I also used the prize money to buy a really nice suit, so that was really
Oh,
fun for me.
cute. Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so moving on to question two. So I guess this one's sort of uh, possibly big. What made you pursue a career in STEM?
Oh my gosh. From what I can remember, so I've been doing science since I was about 14, 15 years old back in high school. That's all I really ever did. I think just back then, when there's so much like uncertainty in the world about everything, it was really nice to be able to look at something in the distance and kind of know what made it up, how it worked, and sort of just how things worked on like a smaller scale. And I just started to look into it. And ever since then, I've been hooked. So, and it's pretty much just been that. I've just sort of been going from learning place to learning place. And here I am now doing a PhD looking at really small stuff. So,
I find it really interesting that like you were attracted to science because of the like certainty of it, whereas now you're doing research into looking to try and find something that doesn't exist.
yeah, I have to calm myself every morning when I realize how much of a 180 it is. But
Yeah.
for one day at a time.
All right. So this one is like what is getting down to what we're sort of talking about. So what does Transgender Awareness Week and LGBTQIA plus STEM Day mean to you? Like both of those we can discuss separately, but
It's interesting because they both definitely are intertwined in so many different ways. I would definitely say more than anything that it's odd in that I think the interpretation of the term being trans or being part of the LGBTQIA plus community is quite archaic. A lot of people sort of see it as you are one or the other, whereas really almost every single person I know that's part of both of these communities just exists on this huge spectrum and are all just so incredibly unique. And I see it every day in the people I talk to, especially in the, online sort of communities and these sort of events that happen. But when it comes to being in person, I don't really see that awareness sort of thing. And I know that we all come in so many different shapes and sizes and backgrounds and levels of privilege, but I don't really like people don't really see that sort of thing. So
mm,
or I want to be able to use for me I think it is the people that do have a level of privilege and ability to be able to be an advocate and show people, hey, we all exist on such a large spectrum and we're not going to fit into these individual boxes that you like and the pre-biases that you have. By being able to do that, it sort of opens the gateway for more people to think, well, I can explore my own self and feel like I don't have to be one or the other because people see me like that. And that's sort of
mm.
just being able to bring awareness to the people that don't feel comfortable in doing so. Yeah, that's sort of
Yeah, like that's weirdly that also goes into the next question, but uh I guess it's one of those things of it's still like STEM's still quite a I wouldn't say sheltered, but it is still
partially.
quite a discipline that is not oh god, Greg, find your words. Like it's not that it's selective, but it's sort of like there is a concept of what people in STEM look like and act like. And I think that's the thing that um then being able to see people, pardon me, like yourself, would allow other people to go, oh, okay, cool, like I can pursue this.
Exactly, yeah. Or you can feel comfortable in being able to pursue it and be in however kind of way you like without feeling like you're going to sort of be questioned or anything. But
Yeah.
it's weird. I see a lot of people that look either similar to myself or just sort of a bit more able to be open themselves on the sort of undergraduate position as students, but I definitely don't see much of it in like the higher sort of it's a bit of a dissonance, but yeah, I
Yeah.
know just yeah,
But
it's
yeah.
weird.
So this that actually perfectly leads to question four is what is the most affirming experience you've had within academia? So obviously when I'm talking about affirming, it's sort of like more around your gender and etc., but also just generally.
Like, it's yeah, good questions for both. Honestly, in 100% transparency, I don't think I've had too many affirming experiences. Mind you, I personally have sort of only recently come to terms with how I identify and feel comfortable in probably the last year or two. And it's also not something that I've really had that chat with my supervisors or sort of with my group as a whole sort of thing. So I don't expect them to sort of eh, yeah, I wasn't really expecting anything from them. But having said that, I think the closest thing I had was when we recently had coincidentally another person sort of that is a bit more aware of these things join our group and then ask me my pronouns. That's the most affirming experience I've probably had in academia, if that really counts. But yeah,
No, but that is something like, and I think that's one of those things of like a lot of the time people go, oh, like all this pronoun business, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, one, it's not difficult. There's like three really that you can mix up in different ways, but it's like, but just something as small as like using or asking pronouns can make someone feel so safe and so comfortable that it's like, why is this not common practice?
yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. I think that there's this big thing of when people hear pronouns, they automatically register of, oh, people are so demanding, this, and it's so hard. Firstly, I don't think it's that demanding. I'm not saying that every single time you walk into a room, you have to go and ask individual. I think people tend to think that that's the extreme people are asking for, when
Yeah.
it's really not. And the other one is I think personally, if you can avidly remember whether or not someone's prefix is associate professor, professor, dean, doctor, mister, if you if you can remember those, maybe it's a bit easier to remember some pronouns occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's a weird thing of like, because I remember when like a lot of people started talking about like they them as pronouns, and people were like, oh, but it just seems so dismissive or so rude, like, because it's in your head it's can be used as a plural, but you're talking about someone singularly. But then they'll be like, oh, this person asked me to use pronouns of they, them. Like, why would I like? And it's like, no, but you do it. Like you use them without knowing about it. So why is it difficult?
Yeah.
How
It
did
no,
I
it's
circle back to the point? Yeah.
I mean, the point's been made, and it's exactly right as well. It's I think when you put more emphasis on something, people think it's more difficult than it is. Which again, we use it for people whose gender we don't know. Maybe people really heavily associate it with the like using it for inanimate objects or like it's potentially. But even then, it's sort of I don't know. I find it funny because I was very similar having difficulty when I first got into the community and I met so many people that were non-binary. It took me or like use they them pronouns, and it took my mindset a bit. But after a bit, I find that I use those terms more to describe almost anyone unless they've explicitly told me their pronouns. It tends to just be the gender neutral stance. So it's sort of
Yeah,
like guilty until
exactly.
proven otherwise or something.
Yeah. Okay, so this one's a big question. Do you feel there is a strong LGBTQIA presence within STEM?
An interesting one because the as there be with there being people that are part of the community in STEM, absolutely, so prevalent. I know that of so many people in that are. It's weird. It's like a Venn diagram of people that like science and things, and that also are. It's almost a circle sometimes. But when it comes to there being a prevalence in the form of a kind of a community that sort of is interwoven and know each other, especially at these academic levels, I would say not. So like I know of people, but I don't know of a collective of people, if that makes sense.
Well, I guess it's also like going back to what you said earlier, that it's like there's a lot of people within undergraduates, but then as soon as you sort of go further, it's like people start to sort of dissipate. Um, and I guess it's also like, does that mean that we have to look at a level of like comfortability, or in itself, like what does academia do to make people uncomfortable, possibly?
I think so. There's definitely some things I think that academia do. Surprisingly, I don't necessarily think it's also the um, not being like accommodating for it. I think that those that are sort of, LGBT, a lot of us also tend to sort of come to terms with our neurodivergence a little bit. And I know that, and as a brief summary, academia tends to, I think, not be a place that is not when it comes to sort of accommodating for those that are neurodivergent in different ways, it very much filters people out pretty quickly. So the people that continue on or feel like they can tend to not. And I think that
Hmm.
tends to, some of us put our mental health first a little bit sometimes in those places until they can make the changes.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, focus
No,
great.
it's a bit of a side one, that one, adding it in. I tend to like, they tend to, yeah.
Oh no, because I was going to also ask, like, do you also feel that a lot of like community look to go to work as opposed to continuing through academia? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I 100% think they do. From
yeah.
what I've seen as well, I think that in general, people tend to, we get our eyes woken up when we look. I think it's less than 2% of people actually that do their PhDs and do research actually go on to be professors at universities and things. It's a very small number. So that already is like sort of disheartening. But the state of how sort of science is in Australia as well these days, I don't think too many people see a bright sort of, and there's so many fantastic research opportunities. It's just more, there's a few reasons to get disheartened on the way, I think.
Yeah. Oh, well, this one that once again leads into the next question is, do you feel supported within STEM being part of the LGBTQIA plus community?
That's another interesting question. It's a hard one, I guess, because have I avidly, as a person, looked at ways that exist within STEM and RMIT that could support me? Do I know of, you know, opportunities or groups? Well, no, but have I avidly looked? Potentially not so much. Then again, I've also been at RMIT for 7 or 8 years now, from my undergrad to my current PhD. And do I know of many opportunities when it comes to sort of or support within STEM that have been readily like easy to find? Also no. So I think it's a bit of both of like I haven't necessarily avidly looked for them, but I also don't know, I also know they're not readily visible
Yeah. I guess
if there are
like
them.
yeah, but I guess it also like if like tying those two things that we talked about just before, like the fact that like there's also not a strong community within STEM makes it then difficult to feel supported at the same time because it's like, oh, I don't have my little like bubble of friends around me. Um, but I guess also going back to the fact of like the accessibility of information and support groups can be really tricky to find. Um, but that's sort of just like anywhere and everywhere, like not just RMIT, it's like other universities, other workforces, blah, 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 blah. Like it's that thing of a lot of these sort of support networks are set up by people who don't actually need them. And so therefore they don't know what accessibility needs that the people who do need them have to get to it. Yeah, that made sense.
It does make a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that sort of thing as well is that, like, for instance, I haven't felt the need to sort of have or build that part of like a support group at RMIT because I have so many amazing support groups outside of my university. So
Yeah.
and that I'm a part of and advocate and sort of engage with. So I haven't really needed it here, but I know there are people that do. So it's sort of like right now trying to maybe help sort of build the foundations to have a group like that for those that do need the support. And I think that there'd be a lot. I would mean a lot for a lot of people, perhaps that do feel kind of constantly, maybe not myself 100% of the time, but those that sort of they feel very invalidated potentially university and maybe to
Mm.
and this is a thing that is at multiple universities and academia as well. It's not just limited to our own university, but I think having a group where it's like when you feel disheartened or like you don't have a place in academia and to be around other researchers that feel similar and like, oh, you also feel this thing would probably actually like even over a cup of coffee I think would mean a lot.
Yeah.
So
Like I remember I was looking at something like there was a study that basically said like within the LGBTQIA plus community, like 70% of people had said that 80% of their time at work they are not their authentic self. And I think that's also the difficulty of like where support comes in, not just from an LGBTQIA plus community, but also people around you, because it's like you saying like, oh, I don't need support within STEM because I've got support outside. But then it's like, but how much time do you spend within study, etc. That
exactly. I also work from
having,
home as well. So there are
yeah,
people that what about those that have to be in the office 24/7 and things and don't get to walk around with their like gym jam authentic self like
yeah. Yeah. But it's
if
also the
if
type of
needed.
thing of like, because I find it quite interesting, like, obviously the work that I do, if I don't have people around me that I can talk to about, it's really like quite difficult. Do you know what I mean? Because then it's like you've got to go into this backstory of like blah, 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 blah. And it's like, and this is the problem I'm facing. So it's sort of like if you don't have a community within STEM or you don't have that support, like if you have to turn to outside support, maybe like that can also be trying at the same time because you're like, oh, I'm talking about batteries.
Yeah. It that's yeah, that's actually pretty much what happens normally. I will admit there is a bit of difficulty finding support, even just to chat to people sometimes about like they
Yeah,
yes,
so
just agree.
yeah, cool. Anyway, so question number 7. So with education and training that's been happening over the last few years, have you seen a positive change within like STEM slash academia? So obviously, like when you look at people doing like inclusive leadership training, like unconscious bias training, which what Australia's sort of been focusing on in the last like 2 to 3, 5 years sort of thing. Like, have you noticed a change?
In specifically the academic research center that I've seen, not too much. Really, that's it's interesting. I've seen it on the change of like when you have these like larger conferences that are ran, and particularly by external organizations that involve the research and academic community that come to them. I was at one a while ago, which was hosted by a supercomputing facility, and they had the you could actually select and actually pick up little pronoun badges that you could have on you and stuff, and you could actually have these sort of that way, you could be addressed the way you felt comfortable. And it was amazing how they had them as external ones, but when it comes to sort of the internal affairs of what happens at the universities, I don't really personally see too much. I don't think I've ever had many meetings where like I've heard about, yeah, but I know that there is training and stuff, and I've seen some people at my university that have actually gone to it, which has been fantastic. I think that maybe a broader, and those people are, it's the it's amazing. Sorry, it's amazing to see what the training does for people, but I think having maybe a university wide as well would be, yeah. So sorry, overall, not too many
Yeah.
changes. Yeah.
Like what I've found sort of quite interesting is like, because I've been thinking about this quite a lot recently. When you look at sort of academia as a whole, you've got people who have been in their field of work for like what, 20 years. And it's sort of like, well, when you started, like you didn't think about anything besides your science, and now you're at a point where you're like, oh, I've got a wonderful life, etc. And then people are like, oh, by the way, you have to use, like, you have to learn how to use pronouns, you have to, like, you also need to do unconscious bias training, blah blah blah, blah. And it's sort of like, because they didn't think about that when they were signing up, is there a resistance of like, well, why do I have to change myself for the job that I've been in forever?
Exactly. Yeah. I think a lot of people say, well, if it ain't broke, if we've been able to conduct research, if we've been able to, like, we're still doing research, why should identity and pronouns and the way people feel matter? Like, you come here to do a job. We don't think about that.
Yeah,
But people do the job that they can, the best that they can. Like, imagine if they had like all of this training before and people could feel comfortable at work and stuff and not like have half their mind somewhere else wondering, oh, am I doing everything okay at work?
yeah.
And that is not just extended to the LGBT, but just people in general to feel more comfortable at their work. Imagine the most amazing research that we could do and the stuff that we could do. Like,
Exactly. We'd be on Mars already. Not that I want to be. Anyway, that
yes,
was random. Like,
we
so
could
question
absolutely
eight.
digress. But
This is sort of an open-ended thing. Like, what would you like to see happening within the next few years within academia slash STEM?
honestly, the biggest thing, I think there are so many changes that could be made and done. I think starting off small, because that's sort of how it all works, is just we have these like awareness weeks and things where maybe we have our team meetings, if we have meetings in the academic sector, just to have people that are advocates or anything set up and say, hey, if any of you, my students or you within my group, identify this or want me to use any particular pronouns, things like just have more of a discourse and a discussion around it, and also maybe have some more like actually maybe have some support groups sort of pop up as well so people can find other people within the community and have those people that they can talk to that also kind of get a bit of the science background.
Yeah,
um yeah,
with
those are the
like
big ones.
within RMIT, I know there is the DGSS group.
They're
I
really
was,
cool. I joined
yeah.
that one, so
Oh, cool. But I guess it's also like what a lot of the conversation around sort of specific days or specific weeks is like the tokenization has sort of been like, oh, it's like Trans Awareness Week, and so therefore we're going to talk about it for a week, and then be like, oh, cool, that's done.
yeah, like Are You Okay Day, how it's one day where everyone pops out of the woodwork and says, are you okay? But those that have chronic conditions, long-term mental health issues, they're forgotten about every other day.
Yeah.
And it's
Oh, don't get me started on Are You Okay Day, because I'm
oh,
like,
I will. Yeah, it's exactly like that as well. And it's sort of like you shouldn't have to facilitate and have a time where like it's great as a way to start conversations, but really practicing a routine awareness of it. And even
yeah,
just if you meet someone new and you don't know, they don't have to present in a particular way or have their hair cut a certain way or anything for you to maybe consider. They also might have looked a certain way when you first met them and changed immensely, but just be a little more conscious. And maybe
yeah.
if you're not, even if you are sure, just ask them once. It's not a rude thing. And I think that kind of stuff, all tiny things like that, are sort of changes that could really help.
Yeah, so I guess it's like one of those things of like just make small incremental changes within your daily life. Like, and I think like I think a lot of it is there's so much fear around getting stuff wrong. where it's like you can do, like, you can get stuff wrong. We all do all the time. That's also why you research stuff, because clearly nobody's gotten it right before you. Um, so it's sort of like, if you can apply that sort of same sort of concept of like, well, in my research, I have to learn X, Y, and Z to get to a point of blah. And it's like, why can't you do that with just people?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not, contrary to popular belief, it's not that hard. A little bit, like, it's, you don't have to go into a workplace or your a lab and go to every single person, what is this, and memorize them all, things like, we're going to make mistakes, but just trying a little bit, or at
Yeah.
least just thinking, what is one change that I can do, what is one thing that I can do, should I reach out to one person, and just go from there, just practice
Yeah.
it.
All right, question 9. Do you think there is a need to create greater networks for LGBTQIA people within STEM/academia? And I'm going to assume that that would be a big yes.
Yeah, that would definitely be a big yes. I hadn't thought about it before, because also as a member of like one of the HDR representative networks, that sort of cover a few different disciplines. At first, when I put my hand up to sort of hopefully be a somewhat representative of LGBT presence in like HDRs, I was like, well, why? What's the, it's sort of like a, hey, I'm a token, I'm here, but there are, I think having that community and having a bit more presence and that support, I think would mean so much to so many different people in different ways.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's one of those things that what I find quite interesting is like, because I don't have a massive academic background, that it's like you've got University of Melbourne down the road from where we are in the city. And it's like, how come there's not like groups within like other universities? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I
there are
hadn't thought about that
people,
one actually.
no, but it's like there are people over there who are probably studying the same thing, who are in quite a similar position to you, but it's not like there's no connection, which is super weird.
Yeah, it is actually, now that I think about it, where it's like not just like those that are doing, it's like specifically with STEM. The way I meet people that coincidentally are doing their PhDs at other universities is by going to like nerdy conventions, and we're both like, oh, you're doing a PhD and are also this, and that probably isn't the way that we should all be meeting.
No, but like what is quite interesting. So last year I was part of a group that worked that facilitated a conference up in Brisbane that was for marginalized or underrepresented people within the STEM community. And like these things are happening. It's just also trying to get people to know about them, because there's also that thing of like there are a lot of events that are consistently happening, and like I've been to some where I'm just like all I'm hearing is a lot of white noise about how you support people or like what your figures are, but no actual sort of like this is the nitty-gritty of what is actually happening and what we actually do. um and so I think that's the thing, like in the next, I'd say probably 2 years, there is going to be a lot more sort of traction around things that will be beneficial for people. Fingers crossed.
I hope so too. Also, apologies if you now hear a rumbling in the background. My laptop fan has decided to just awaken and just
Oh
sound like a
no,
starship.
all good. No, no, can't hear it. It's fine.
Oh, beautiful. But no, I completely agree as well. And I think it's how when like these opportunities pop up and people that are both in the community maybe want to join in on them, or those that are external looking just think, oh, well, what's the point? What the change is this making besides like people just being like, oh, increase those diversity rates, increase that tokenism sort of thing. And it's like, well, there's got to be something in between, but where do you start with that?
Yeah. And I guess it's also like sometimes it can be disheartening of going to like, oh, here's another one of these things where people sort of go, oh, sorry. Oh, this is how we like are doing, as opposed to like, this is what we are doing to try and make this better. Which comes to my last question, is what advice would you give allies within STEM and academia?
I'd say reiterating on the point, I it's hard because there are so many lovely people that make it. I know so many amazing allies that actually sort of I like. I think I know a few of them that were they have all of the RMIT like these lovely looking lanyards and was like, I thought I should buy one because it's an Elsa. I'm like, yes, honestly, any change that you can make. I would definitely say just try be more conscious, but not in like a you're not being conscious, be more conscious, more in like a try and avidly make once think of what's one small change I can do to like sort of help support the people around me that might be within this community, whether I know it or not, whether they're comfortable sharing or not. You like you don't necessarily have to assume because someone presents a certain way that they are or aren't. I would say sometimes listen in a conversation, and if you are kind of finding that like they're not really using particular language to describe themselves, and some of the other people also aren't, or if they look uncomfortable with the language you've just used, just think about that stuff occasionally. You don't have to overanalyze every conversation you have, but just start to make small changes and just sometimes be mindful of what you say. And I think just small stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, like the good point of saying like you don't have to be overly conscious consistently. Do you know what I mean? Like I think a lot of the time when people sort of start um going down a pathway of education around certain things that are outside their like normal comfortability, they then think it's like, oh, I have to be on always. And it's like I have to consciously like be like, oh my God, is this person going to be offended if I say X, Y, and Z? And it's like, I mean, for the first little while, you probably will think like that. But it's also like if you break your mindset of like, oh, everybody's X, Y, and Z, it will become second nature to you.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of those things of like, I remember talking to someone about it's quite frustrating when you have like KPIs or policies around like gender equity or etc. Because it's like, oh, shouldn't we just have it? And it's like, no, but if you put a policy in place, at least there is something that then once you reach that, you won't need the policy any like him
Exactly.
that yeah,
No,
that
it does. Yeah. And people sort of see these policies and think, oh, like it's weird. People read that there's a policy and they think, oh, so if I apply and this person will get the job. And it's like, well, actually, if you read it, it's more if there are two people equally qualified for a role and one of them is this and one of them isn't, it's a case and your numbers are so and you need that, then that's how that kind of comes into like it's not,
yeah.
yeah, it's, yeah.
Hey, and what there was something else I was gonna say. Allies talking. Yeah. Come on, Greg. Oh, I think it's also one of those things of a lot of people forget that there is so much resource out there nowadays. Like, so in terms of allyship, it's sort of like if you don't understand something, just Google it. Do you know what I mean? Like, if someone sort of uses the word, like I remember a while ago, someone messaged me and was like, "Oh, what does the term cisgendered mean?" Because I was using it in something, and I was like, "One, I'm frustrated that you've known me this long, and you don't know, but two, also like." It is not my place. Like, yes, I will educate you because it's also what I do, but it's also technically not my place to tell you. Like,
Yeah.
it's
I find
not,
it's
yeah,
Yeah, I find it interesting as well because it definitely depends on the background of the person. Like if I know that half the people in science, maybe if they asked me, I'd have the exact someone, okay, the exact sort of not opposite reaction, but I have the reaction of like, oh well, I know you've come like. I mean, I think we're coming to a place now where it's like a lot of us just also in science, cis and trans mean very two different things about a molecule. So trying to get your brain around that. Um, so it would be
right.
like, but
Okay.
that's the orientation of like I'm like no, it is, and then but I find somewhere it's like I know that maybe they've got a bit more of like a sheltered upbringing potentially, like I'm more than happy to sort of be a kind voice to explain that, but there are some where it's like I know that you've been exposed to it before, maybe you're asking it because you just want to be a bit of like a shit stirrer,
Yeah.
like,
But
and
it's
that's sort
also
of difference.
like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's one of those things of like growing up within the LGBTQIA plus community. Like, for me, like, I didn't have the access to the information that is around now. But what's weird is like obviously we've like self-educated throughout the way that we do things, but it's also that thing of like hang on, Greg, where are you going? The fact that like we've always had to do this, and now that it's sort of like, oh, we're asking people within the cis community to sort of be like, oh, maybe, and like cis and hetero community to just be like, oh, maybe just be a bit more conscious. It's sort of then like, oh, I don't know where to find this information, or like blah blah blah. And it's like literally you type any word into a search bar and yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's kind of like. If it is something where like if the sort of excuses, well, I don't know where to find the info. It's like try look, especially like if you are a researcher things, you learn that just Google things, and then if you can't buy them, then of course, but like just try first, I guess. But
Hmm.
I guess
'Cause
yeah, it's yeah.
I guess it's also that type of thing of like I remember talking to someone and they were like, oh, just because we're part of a LGBTQIA plus community does not mean that we speak for every single letter.
Yeah,
And I think that's one of the biggest things of sort of like also you can be under lots of the letters, et cetera, et cetera. But just because someone's within a community of people doesn't mean they know everything about everything.
exactly. Yeah, that's why I'm even doing this interview now. I'm like, well, I know that I definitely there are some of this. I don't. This is just me talking about my personal experience,
Yeah.
not necessarily as someone that's speaking for all of the community at all.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, but
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Annalisa. It's been absolutely wonderful. And for everybody out there, I just want to say a massive like happy LGBTQIA plus day, STEM day, and also Trans Awareness Week. Thank you, everybody. Bye.